Tomas Gorny and Scott Forbush from Nextiva, and really we're here today to just further that CX context of, hey, why is CX so important and so relevant in today's world, and how are companies like Nextiva disrupting the market because of, not because of the how as much, but because of the why. Why are we responding to the market and actually leading the market in areas that customers may or may not consider as being relevant, or really as they're thinking about just their technology needs, how they create technology, process, and get to that future state or that destination experience that they're looking for. And so Tomas and Scott, thank you so much for joining Scott and I today, and love to just hear a little bit about, kind of perspective on how you approach or why you approach CX the way you do within Nextiva, but a little bit of that background and why it's relevant in your own DNA. Is always good for the audience to kind of hear a little bit about how you got to where you were and some of the scar tissue or some of the bumps and bruises that you've found along the way, and why we have these conversations to generate thought and generate ideas. But Tomas, why don't you kick us off? Give us a little of your background and tell us why CX is so important to you and how Nextiva has been framed up.
First, John and Scott, thank you. We're privileged that you guys invited us to your event and show. Yeah, happy to give you a little bit of a background. So Nextiva started a while ago in 2008, and Nextiva started since the beginning with the purpose of helping businesses to build deeper relationship with the customers. And the reason we really started the company, because I was very fortunate when I came to the US as a young kid to participate and then be part of and even start some what became market-defining companies. And the irony was, the larger we became, the more disconnected we were becoming from our customers, even back then in the days. And so I was looking for solutions in the marketplace to really, I could never address it properly. So we decided to build it on our own. And in that process, what we discovered that many people just like us and smaller, larger businesses have very similar issues. And that's how the idea for Nextiva was born. And originally Nextiva contemplated how do we going to start this? And with the core communication, name it, voice, email, even on the beginning, a little bit of a live chat, different from today. And then when we're expanding 14, the world started becoming much more digitized. And that's where we started filing for patents around literally AI, automation, RPA. And our purpose of those patents was really outside to shape and protect the company kind of for future innovation. It was actually really to change the paradigm that as much as things like NPS are very important, but they are lagging indicators, that companies really need to know the signals and the sentiment of the customers right at the moment when they interact with them. And that's only possible if you bring somewhat kind of AI together. We called it back then NLP, machine learning, because just the definitions were different. And so we developed our first version of platform and second version platform, and I'm happy to talk about it. But you asked me actually what I think is more important question. It's CX is so important today to everyone. And if you don't mind me kind of answering that, is that when I look at the world, like it has been undergone a fundamental shift in the last probably 5 years. And when you think about historically, companies competed on an access to an exclusive distribution or on the proximity to the customers. Today, competition is global. A small company across the ocean in the garage today can compete against some of the largest corporations in the world. And one of them may not make enough difference, but a collection of those do, right? Secondly, the power has, let me just take a little bit drink. The power has shifted from the businesses to the consumers to the buyers. Because today, the consumers, the buyers, they have unprecedented access to information. They can compare prices, products, services, super easily at the fingertip. And so companies cannot anymore throw marketing dollars at that just to buy brand loyalty. Brand loyalty cannot be bought anymore. And the irony of all what's the CX solutions out there is that because the buyers are so well informed and the consumers are so well informed, they very often today know the companies better, even the competitors, than the companies that they interact with, which creates this big predicament for businesses, the one that need to differentiate on experiences. And then the last thing I would want to mention is that we live today over the last 5-7 years, got tremendously commoditized and hyper-rationalized. And for companies in hyper-competitive market, they decided using experience as a way to differentiate themselves. And what's the exception to the rule? The market today, this norm, because when you think about us here in of the listeners, we do not compare companies anymore to the nearest competitors. We compare companies to some of the best experiences we ever had. And we expect this from everybody that we do business with. And if we don't get that, we are very quickly to vote with our wallet. Right. And that's essentially creates this predicament really for businesses.
Yeah, I love that. I think, the accessibility of capabilities and how companies like Nextiva are really driving this accessibility across their platform. The way that you've created, that linkage between experience, desire. So you mentioned, we rate our experiences based on kind of our top brands that we do business with, and we all, in one form or way, have probably worked or bought through Amazon. Amazon's not the most elegant website and retail site in the world, but they're predictable, they're fast, efficient, and their one-click shopping has made everyone an armchair quarterback when it comes to CX experience. I know what I want on a communications platform because I shop on Amazon is just a completely disjointed way of thinking about it. But in all reality, it's the challenges that CX disruptors are facing today. And I can be the same as all of my competitors and then have one or two things that differentiate me. Or I can think of it in terms of how accessible can I be to the customer so they can tell me where they want to go from here versus me trying to predict where I think would be best suited. And maybe, Scott, you can talk a little bit about the channel as well, and how technology advisors are really engaging at a different level today than they may have even a couple of years ago because of those things like accessibility and CX experiences that are driving more of your development roadmap and the way that you partner with your partners in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. It's certainly a changing landscape for all the technology advisors out there. We were talking a little bit as a group just before we went live here, kind of about the good old days. And, a lot of what we were talking about was just, hey, opening up these channels and voice, email, chat, and so on and so forth. It's not that simple anymore. Like when trusted advisors go into these customer environments, they have to have a much broader conversation. Prior to my time here at Nextiva, I worked for a contact center consulting firm, and we would go in there and we would have no fewer than 8 stakeholders in each decision maker. As a matter of fact, the number of stakeholders is typically 12 to 15 when you get into the upper mid-market and enterprise space. And that's a much different environment than what we were accustomed to as trusted advisors in the past, where you'd be talking to either the telco manager alone or the contact center manager alone. Now you've got to go in, and when you talk about customer experience, this is a big shift for a lot of advisors in that you're often talking to the CMO, because the CMO is responsible for that entire customer journey throughout.
Mm-hmm.
And, to echo a little bit of what Thomas said, when buyers come in, they have a much different expectation. I've got the privilege of going out to a lot of these channel events and standing on stage. And, one of the jokes that I throw out there is, hey, who's here from out of town? A bunch of hands go up. How many people, while you've been here away from home, have ordered something from Amazon or from somewhere else, and you expect that is going to be sitting on your front doorstep when you get home? Same number of hands go up, right? There is an expectation in our minds, and just like Thomas was saying, now you've got people that are halfway across the globe operating out of a garage that can offer the exact same experience as an Amazon today by utilizing a platform such as Nextiva's.
Right. Yeah, that's ubiquitous now across the world, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and John, you mentioned that, right? Maybe one thing to add is the side of the Amazon experience, which is effortless, seamless, right? And we got spoiled as consumers today, like as simple as that. But when we talk about CX experience, CX experience is such a broad terminology, and what we find ourselves very often when we talk to customers, we almost have to redefine that for them, because the way what we believe CX is the end-to-end experience. It's not just support. It's not just omni-channel. Actually, in our environment, we are channel agnostic. What it comes down to, what you said, is like, how do you take the different stack of technology and deliver it to automation, RPA? You get signals even from the website before the conversation starts. So you essentially, deliver, you understand, know, and remember in real time at any point in time, right? And it doesn't through channel or human delivery. And that's really what makes X, because Amazon is proving that. That's its CX experience.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of our project work, when we go into companies and talk about CX as a general framework, we like to put workshops together with business, IT, marketing, sales, and we bring people together and go, in your head, where do you think this experience ultimately lands for you? Take the technology out of it, take the process out of it, but on your best day shopping your brand, your own brand, what does that destination experience look like? And you'll get a number of people in the room. You'll say, who all wants the company to grow or be the best in the industry for what you do? And everyone will raise their hand and then say, okay, well, why is there a challenge in getting there? And oftentimes it's, well, because we're competing on budget and time and resources and all the things that tend to get in the way. And technology almost always comes up within those conversations, but getting customers to really define what that destination experience looks like helps us vet out those things and go, all right, that would be a great solution for this particular supplier or provider, or hey, these guys are building something within their API suite, or how you're allowing, like Nextiva is allowing accessibility to all applications, all data environments. It helps enable AI. It helps enable those things that, again, everyone is kind of having in the back of their mind, but it focuses on experience first. That allows us to bring in the suppliers that have the tools and the mindset and the culture around what will get them to kind of they're done quicker, but also it's stickier for long term. It's almost future proofing. So if you can get the clients to talk about like the future, to your point, Tomas, about, if you can get these kind of concepts out in a row and you're redefining what CX really means to these consumers, the technology decision becomes much easier. And again, I think it's been, Scott, to your point in the past, we worked with IT because it was a piece of technology that we were trying to solve a problem with or solve an experience with. And really, in all reality, we need to get on the same page about what we're trying to do from a long-term customer standpoint before we can start picking capabilities. And again, I think that's that shift that the trusted advisor community, us as a consulting firm, the way we approach clients and why we continually are called back to the table with our clients is because we start there first. We don't try to sell them something to begin with. We try to create the opportunity of we'll help you define where it is that you want to go, and then we'll bring in our partners as we see best fit your needs. And to me, that's a much more effective solution. I think that's why we're a little bit different, but it's the challenge that we have on a day in and day out basis, and more than likely how you're looking at your product roadmap going forward. It gives you the best results in how you're trying to target capabilities in the future.
Yeah, and on that point, John, like you hit on a really key area there, in that you're going in and you're trying to help define what that customer experience and that customer journey is going to be. You're not starting the conversation with technology.
Right.
Right. We're the technology piece of this equation at Nextiva. As the trusted advisor or the consultant, you're the one that's having the conversation on the front end to identify which technology is the best fit. But before you do that, I always talk to my team about there's really 3 pillars that you need to concern yourself with when you're talking about customer journey, customer experience. Number 1, it's the people. Like you've got to do an audit of the people within the organization, define their roles, what are they there to do. Then you talk about the processes. What are the processes? Like, walk me through the customer experience today.
Right.
What does it touch, systems-wise, people-wise, call flow, all that sort of thing. Like, what does that journey look like? What do you want it to look like? The very last thing is the technology piece. Far too often, we as the old school advisors, we start with the technology and then try to shoehorn that into whatever the environment is. In a lot of cases, what we're doing as advisors today is we're completely redefining what that environment is and redefining what that experience is. Then you select the provider such as Nextiva to help come in and pull all that together. Because one of the things that we pride ourselves on is being that single source of truth for data. You were talking earlier about, you have to talk to sales, you have to talk to customer service, you've got to talk to marketing, you talk to all these different stakeholders. They're all part of this customer experience today. Whereas old school, right, we were just talking to the call center manager. And that was our sole focus, is just call center agent, call center agent, call center agent. Well, now this is bringing everybody into the fold. I was doing a podcast with one of the TSDs a couple of weeks ago, and we talked, and he said, look, give me an example, like make up a fictitious thing. And I thought, okay, I'll take like a municipality. Like, we do a lot in state and local government. So let's say it's the water company, and you've got a disgruntled customer that goes online and they're like, hashtag, WaterCo, you shut me off, shame on you guys are terrible, blah, 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 blah. That's all unstructured data, right? We don't have that sitting in a CRM or a database that you can go pull from, but that is critical for us to capture as the water company to see that information. Well, that by itself, just an angry customer, isn't good enough. You have to couple that with the structured data, bring those two together and marry them up in one single source of truth, and present that to the employee that can best handle that. So if you've got Mr. or Mrs. Jones that's complaining that their water shut off and kicking up this big stink, we capture that through our software, bring it in, couple that up with the structured data and go, well, it's because they haven't paid their bill in 6 months. So when you then address that issue, you've got both sets of data in one interface that you can appropriately handle that, instead of just calling them up going, what's wrong, right? You're calling with information. Hey, I see this. How can we resolve it?
Yeah, and I think,
if I can maybe double click a little bit on this, but because you maybe that's helps some of you clients and the people that you advise, and we actually take a very similar approach here. We at Nextiva consider ourselves also trusted advisor to you as our partner, and also to our customers. Our professional delivery organization, and plus our CRM, customer management organization, they are committed, to really the success of the deployment, not just to the technology. But what does it mean? I don't want to do advertising here for Nextiva, is that what we see and what we have figured out, that, probably the tech over the last couple of years move at a quicker pace that the mentality and the adoption of people wanting to go all the way there. They hear the buzzwords, AI and others, but they still don't know what it is, and sometimes they are unwilling to admit because they assume they're supposed to know, right? And so we're taking very much what you said, the first step, how is your business looking like? But then what we're picking, like a couple of low-hanging fruits. We're not trying to boil the ocean. And we say, okay, let's set up the foundation and let's demonstrate to you, even with simple things like transcription and summarization, literally. I mean, that's kind of the lowest form of AI today, right? But it starts the aha moments start coming in. And then we say, you know what? It seems like you're getting this kind of hundreds of calls a day or months of password resets or bill question. Let's automate this. You know what I mean? We can automate, and we can actually even tie it into a billing system, and we can create rules. Imagine our agentic AI, it's almost like a human that you train to do certain things. And then you have another human, right? Or agentic AI. And if the one skill set of that one AI is not good, then it passes to another AI. We're already doing that all behind the scenes, but very often we don't even talk to our customers about it because that sounds like hocus pocus. Right? And the thing, but what it does, we can, you know, it's really the next stage of RPA. And again, another big keyword here. But if you can take some of the simple processes and I say, hey, I can take a human out of it, and because this is a mundane, repetitive task that we can correlate to other experiences and deliver it as good or more even probably predictably, because humans, like all of us, we have bad days, we don't wake up sometimes well, and after the weekend, who knows, right, how it looks like. So the thing, right, but AI doesn't have that. You know, it's pretty consistent, it's learned, right? And so that's where we focus. And also we're taking the intimidation factor. Are you going to replace every human in my company? No, let's start with the mundane and repetitive task. Yes, and eventually, if for competitive reason, this area of the business is desired to be automated, we can do it all the way. But that's based on business preferences. And that's what we found a lot of success when we go, that we do stage deployments and people essentially gain the confidence and the trust in AI. And the way I explain AI is saying, look, we're human. We're better in empathy. Maybe not me, but as human, we're better in empathy, better in building relationships, and so on. Machines are better processing large amount of data, bringing those information forward, and then creating for you conversation starters, understanding of the customers, what to ask next, and, right? So to me, you know, using AI is in a way the ability to elevate the human beyond the current limitations. That's how I look at it in many ways.
I think those interfaces, you know, the ability for an operator to experiment and to be able to develop those experiences without having to spin up a big project is where platforms like yours are going to win, right? In the past, Scott, we were sharing before the call started about the complexity of designing and creating and orchestrating customer experiences. In the past was, you know, if you wanted to do that, that would be a yearly project, right? If I wanted to do IVR automation, that was a yearly project, right? You'd have to have a PM, you'd spin up, you'd have to buy a product from a Cisco or something like that. And you'd have to spin up this big investment project. And I think tools have evolved so much that are focused on CX like yours, where an operator can experiment with some of those experiences like Tomas was talking about. Like, why don't I just create a quick automation and see if it works? And if it doesn't, I'll try something else, right? And that level of experimentation is so critical, because that's what gets people engaged in changing and evolving their CX experiences. Versus, I have to spend up a $250,000 project to develop this. I don't even know if it's going to work.
Right, and that's what you see, right? Where, and it's unfortunate because of the intimidation factor that unfortunately the industry still creates. It's almost like this entire overhaul. very often when people lose their prospect, we see it as well, unfortunately, is that they don't lose them generally to another competitor. They lose them to status quo.
Right.
Like I just gonna, and you know what? And no decision is also a decision. And with all due respect, I believe that's probably the wrong decision, because the world will move on, and those companies going, you don't want to be BlackBerry.
Right.
You know what I mean? So people will have to take a little bit of a leap of faith towards modern tech, because there will be companies that will outperform even the biggest companies, because they're going to be just more modern, right? A lot of the new decision makers are millennials. They grew up on the internet. All of us got introduced to the internet a different way. It's that they don't know any other way than, like you just said, to just have a drag and drop experiences. And if you tell them about long deployment, it's almost like, well, that's not my world.
That's like
anymore,
forcing
right?
somebody to
And
call
so,
you on the
but what I
phone
would-
versus saying I can self-serve myself, right?
Yeah.
You can get both ways,
Yeah.
right? But I would much rather, at least generationally, it's much more effective to provide the avenues for self-service or I'm going to self-try, which flexes the muscle in different ways. It creates, like I said before, like these CX armchair quarterbacks, but it gives it reality to the businesses that can harness that power and that dialogue, and building a good CX story that says, here's where we're trying to go. We're operating here. We want to be here. And the devil is in the details. But if I have a platform that can let me test and try along the way, and I can work my way through it and pay attention to the sentiment analysis and pay attention to the unstructured content that we've got that creates that aggregated, hey, these are insights. This creates more of your low-hanging fruit, to your point, Tomas. It helps drive that business differently. And I think the millennium mindset, not to pin on a generation, but is much more tuned to, I don't need to worry about all the other stuff, but I want to be able to try so that I can do it myself, or it can be done for me. And I think that, again, that's where platforms will win or lose in the coming years. We've got a couple of minutes. One last thing I wanted to ask: what's next for Nextiva around your CX experience?
So let me, I don't want to screw up your question, but if you allow me to tell less about Nextiva, it's actually not about Nextiva, but about the market, because I want to communicate to the audience why this is important, regardless if you choose us. Of course, we want you to choose us, right? But
knowledge is power, and if you're
important.
going to take your own advice. So my guess is that it'll show up somewhere in Nextiva eventually.
Yeah, it will, and because I think we've been working on it for a long time. We have a lot of scar tissue to show, but having said that, what you just said on the generation preferences, I have a statistic that show internally, it's real. It's literally real, and it's scary, because the baby boomers still the preference is the phone. When you get to Gen X, Z, and what is Gen X, Z, and Y? I don't know. I lost track of all the generation. Right, but the thing, it changes dramatically in terms of. So what you have here, a couple of problems businesses facing, right? One is that essentially they are way more to connect with businesses, and a lot of them are not integrated. And people today want to communicate on their preferred channels, and they are those generational preferences. They often switch between those channels, and they expect companies to remember the thread of the conversation. And the last problem companies has this: historically there was one or two teams responsible for customer experience. Today everybody touched customer experience, right? So how are we different? And everybody gonna take a different spin on the different. But we have done something, I believe, transformational different, and at that point very risky. So what essentially we looked at when the CX movement was happening. I'm gonna be done in a minute. When the CX movement was happening, what a lot of our competitors, the adjacent players, and I, with all due respect to them, I'm not mad-mouthing anybody. They have tremendous success, and I never will argue with that. But what they did, they started retrofitting the CCaaS, UCaaS companies retrofitting the existing solution to CX. And then they bolted on capabilities on top of that, and then giving the illusion of a unified platform. And because of our scar tissue that we got it wrong first time, we have decided 21, 22 to bite the bullet and build it from ground up. And why? Because our belief was that regardless of the tools, that being channel agnostic, even actually being AI agnostic ultimately, is that what is the biggest component to winning is actually data. So we have created really a core system of record that is unifying all customer interactions with business data into a single source of truth. And what that provides businesses, everybody in the organization, from the frontline employees all the way to the CEO, actionable insight, real-time insight, right at the time businesses interact. And because of that, we can build this cohesive platform where decision-making is easier, transparency is there. There is no magic, but to create that, it took us tremendous investment and pain, because for that period of time, Nextiva had to slow down in growth because we were living off old tech. And we're coming on the other side, and we're very not only proud of that, but we see this momentum how now when we're pitching, people gravitate to us because they say, this is exactly the flexibility I need now. And I need the flexibility because I know there are going to be new form of interactions, new software emerging. So I need a platform that is flexible, that I integrate to it and make it future-proof. And that's really fundamentally is the difference in the market, because a lot of people say we have CX companies, but when we mean CX first, it's around every experience. And last statement, our mission, which we are obsessed about, driving better business outcome right at the moment, people and actually the business through AI autonomously or agent assist interacts with the customers.
That's why it's going to disrupt the market, and that's why we think you're onto something there for sure. Last question, Scott Forbush, favorite podcast right now?
This one, hands down, no question.
I love it. I love it. Tomas, favorite podcast?
I got to go with Scott's answer.
You guys are too kind. You're too kind. Scott McIntyre, podcast?
My side is probably Smartless, I'd say.
Smartless is fun. I love hosting these. Thank you, Tomas and Scott, for joining us. Love the perspective on CX. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep forcing the market to think differently about it. And we know our customers are really aggressively looking for capabilities like what you provide and what you're going to force the market to provide from a competitive set. So thank you so much for joining us today. Love to talk to you in the future. And if anyone has any questions about Infinite Green, Nextiva, whatever, please take a look at the QR code in the upper left-hand corner of the podcast. Reach out. I know Scott, Tomas, you guys are always willing to have that conversation. It's a really robust and thick content around what we're trying to do in the market. We're looking at transforming this business into a different way of looking at capability, process, and defining CX and AI in different ways that actually is pushing the envelope on how technology is being built, and the accessibility of what you're talking about in the data and being a data company first. I think is really going to win in the space. So we look forward to talking to you more this year. You guys have a great year. And again, thanks again for joining us today.
And John, I'm happy to talk to you clients, partners. And, I just want to also disarm the conversation. When I talk and give advice, I am sincerely about the advice, and that's independent of Nextiva, because I love the industry got to go there. And the more businesses go there, the better.
Yeah, there's enough business to go around. It's having the right conversation in the right moment, and then figuring out how to land that opportunity is not just the sell, but it's the conversation and the intelligence around it that I think we're all on board with. So thanks again, guys. Appreciate you joining us today, and look forward to having you in the future.
All right.